Many people today want change, but they aren't willing to do the everyday, simple steps to achieve it. A really great example of this is in 2 Kings chapter 5. This is the story of Naaman, who was a high official who had been struck by leprosy. He traveled to a foreign country in order to see a prophet of God who he was told would cure him, and he was expecting to be tested to show how worthy he was. He was going to do something mighty to prove his valor. Instead, when he arrived, the prophet told him all he had to do was go and bathe in a river. And he became very offended at this, not the least of which because he traveled to an entire other country just to be told to go take a bath. And so he's very annoyed, very irritated. He's packing his things, and one of his servants tells him to just try the cure that's prescribed by the prophet. So he does so, and he's cured. He had to be humbled before this healing was even possible. And this is a really great example, and a lot of us need to hear this today, that it's not by our own efforts. It's the efforts of God, maybe through somebody else telling us to get our act together. And Christians are called to follow the Great Commission. This is in Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20. It says that we're to go out and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, going out and teaching people the things that God has commanded for us to do. And so sometimes people will go out, they'll take their cardboard signs, yell at street corners, they'll knock on doors, almost like door-to-door salespeople. And sometimes this works, sometimes it could be a really great method. Other times it might be a little bit manipulative. It really depends on the person doing it. Sometimes these people even act as though they're the saviors of these people, that everything is reliant on what they say. They have to do it perfect, or else this person isn't going to be saved. But what they fail to understand is that Jesus Christ is the one who saves. It's not by our own efforts. So this isn't to condemn anyone in particular or even any evangelism method, just to sort of clarify that. And so sometimes these people feel a little bit put off. And one group that's been really consistently put off by Christians is members of the LGBTQ community. And this can almost be a sort of buzzword to Christians, and rightly so. It's been very influential in society over the past several years. But one thing Christians have been kind of conditioned into believing is that this distorted sexuality is the unforgivable sin, which we know isn't true, because in the Bible, it's just not biblical. The Bible tells us that Jesus, his blood cleanses all. And so if we're not needed in this redemptive process, we're not needed to save these people, then what are we doing? What we're here for is to have relationships with these people. And a really great example of this is Rosaria Butterfield. She was a lesbian professor of English and queer gender studies. She was writing this book about how hateful Christians were to people of the LGBTQ community. And as she was writing this, she was reached out to by a pastor and his wife, inviting her to dinner in their home. And so she accepted the invitation, and they became friends. And in their first meeting, they didn't condemn her lifestyle. They didn't invite her to church. They just had a good time. And so she became open to the idea of becoming friends with them, and they did form a friendship. And she actually used the pastor as a sort of unpaid research assistant as he helped her go through the Bible, which she was using to sort of go against Christians in her book. But through the years, their relationship, their friendship, it became something special. And 2 years after that first dinner meeting, she became a member of a local church and eventually became a Christian, left her old life behind her. She was convicted. And today, she is a Christian speaker and author. She is a wife to a pastor of all things. She is a mother, and she is a hospitality evangelist. And so Rosaria has this incredible quote from an interview. I'll read it to you. It says, "What comes naturally to me and what comes naturally to you is to hang out with people who are like us. People who can maybe finish our sentences, people who don't scare us. But hospitality, biblically speaking, takes strangers and makes them neighbors, takes neighbors and makes them family." And what a lot of people will get wrong is that they believe they're lacking something, which is true, they're lacking God. But they don't understand that it's God who they really feel this pull toward. And they think, oh, maybe if I'm a little bit cooler, if I'm a little bit confident, a little bit more charismatic, then maybe I'll be happy. Or maybe if I get this item, that maybe if I get a new phone, then I'll be happy. Or maybe if I get a person, if I get married, if I'm in a relationship, then I'll find my other half, I'll finally be happy. But what they don't understand is they're really searching for God. And C.S. Lewis says in Mere Christianity that wickedness, when you examine it, turns out to be the pursuit of some good, but only in a wrong way. And so my pastor has this phrase he uses all the time. He says that lost people act the way they do because they are who they are. They're lost people who are without God. And Christians have been given the amazing gift of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit guides us. It shows us what to do. And non-Christians just do not have that. So they don't have any guide of how to go through their life. And Christians, for those who don't have the Holy Spirit, we are meant to be their guide, guiding them toward God. And so Romans 10:14 says, "How then will they call on him who they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him who they have not heard? How are they to hear without somebody preaching to them?" And so there are two kinds of people in the world. There are Christians and there are non-Christians. And if Christians aren't guiding the non-Christians, other non-Christians are going to guide non-Christians. You're going to have the blind leading the blind. And this is why the world is the way it is today. This affects you, this affects me. And just because the world is imperfect, and Jesus tells us to go feed his sheep, that's how we love God. He left the 99 in search of the one lamb. He's all about feeding his sheep. And Christians really do need to step it up. And they have been lacking that in recent years. And I'm a firm believer that's why the world has gone so downhill. And so please go out and feed the sheep of God and do your duty as a Christian. Thank you.